earlier we were talking about TE Lawrence, and the fact that a lot of places use military command units and centers use his book as a point of reference now for not just geographical assault foundationary kind of like control, but also moving on into things like actual assimilating oneself into the environment that one finds oneself in when one is there, sort of, and fine, when blah, 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 blah.
See, I do think that was one of the great things about Lawrence of Arabia. He was obviously a blonde-haired, small white guy, and he basically embedded himself into a culture completely alien to what most people from Britain had ever experienced before. The Bedouin were very, very tribal, very fierce, very big on reputation, very big on thank you, very big on a whole host of attitudes and beliefs. And Lawrence of Arabia was so intelligent and such a good leader that he managed to ingrain himself into a culture completely alien to anything that he's ever could have experienced before, really. And you tell me, why do you think he was so successful at it?
Well, I think that he had a penchant for history. I think that he loved to listen, study, learn. He did his homework before that he found himself in country, and made sure that. And he also, not only that, but he also, I think, as I said, penchant. He fell in love with the culture before he found himself in it. So he went to he was an archaeologist, and went to numerous digs in Cairo and other places. And shout out to the T Lawrence Society, please. I've recently subscribed to you guys, and I want to meet up for your lunch, which is happening in Salisbury and in Cheshire as well. They're also having a lunch.
Never knew that existed.
Yeah, they're quite big on social media. Well, not big as in terms of like their necessary member collection, but I mean for they hit it up, and they're very attentive, and they're very passionate, absolutely. And going back to what I was saying about TE is he had passions within the areas that he wished to find himself in, and was obsessed with military history and the evolution of how humanity as a cult, as a warfaring entity had moved forwards. I think as well is another point of factor, would be where I kind of like take a lot of my understanding of where he was, and I have a very limited and poor understanding compared to a lot of people out there of Lawrence, but I'm just very passionate about him.
But I think that was one of the allures of Lawrence, and what made him quite mystic was even the people that thought they knew Lawrence don't really know the inner mechanics behind what made him such a great guy. And he, even to this day, like, no one really knew what was going on in his head. You can sort of guess about Lawrence, but he was a big one for over exaggerating himself. He was a big one for, creating his own like mythos, basically. And that was one of the amazing things about him. He can create such an amazing story behind himself that people just couldn't help but almost like fall in love with him. Like
the legend of him,
that's it.
The narrative. Oh, just quickly, by the way, your microphone is what you should fall in love with. By the way, stay close to it. As your other half would be on Valentine's Day. Your microphone in this very moment is where you should stay. It is yours. Treat it as your boon is your friend.
How about that?
Take control of it and move it closer, or invert it if you would as well. It will do whatever you like. It's like podcasts are mainly about it's a conversation piece between two people. We don't necessarily have a hello, darling. I'll just park it in the living room for a bit, mate. This is our other housemate has just turned up with his bicycle, very Lawrence-like himself, and straight in. Another great story I used to hear about Lawrence. Sorry, I heard about Lawrence was when he used to visit Siegfried Sassoon, I think it was. He would park his one of his Georges. He would park one of his Georges next to this lovely kind of well-finished neat concrete wall, and would leave numerous scratch marks, I believe, against it on the upon his arrival, before going in to entertain. And yeah, Siegfried Sassoon writes lots about him. I'm actually writing a piece about Siegfried Sassoon's diary entries about his recollections of him, and he did go to stay with him as well, along with people like the three of them. I think himself and Robert Graves had numerous luncheons and teas together and whatnot, and it's quite a clique to be part of, I do believe, back in the day. What would be your favorite, like what would summarize Lawrence for you, for as almost like a recollection, if you had to choose one? I mean, or one that just sparks off the top of your head right now that you...
A man of many talents. He was a carpenter. He cycled all around Europe. So going back to the sort of bike theme, is back before he started at Oxford University, he went, or actually I think it might have been his thesis for Oxford, he cycled around castles all around Europe. And I think it was in these castles that basically gave him such a in-depth knowledge of like strategy and key locations on how to defend certain points to attack. And obviously what Lawrence did was he basically started off with a small group of Arabs and moved all through the Middle East, taking outpost after outpost. He led such a successful guerrilla campaign on the Turks, well, the Ottomans at the time. And he was a man, you know, who could almost sort of feel like he could do anything that he sets his mind to.
His topographical analysis is still used to this very day. Yeah, and that's insane. Is that something as long ago as that, which is well over, I mean, since 2014 now, well over 100 years old. Or over. Yeah, I do believe that as much glory as his life journey has sort of received, I do believe that it should always receive more. Though from what it has, I think that you know, they feel a wing in some places for this man. I recently found myself at the military museum, the war museum in
London,
the Imperial War Museum in London. Yeah. And there was a gentleman. I hope you don't mind me going off on a quick tangent.
Tangents are the best. Spin a good dip.
Well, there was a gentleman there,
guys,
and he was a large gentleman. And he must have been in his sort of like early 60s, maybe late 50s. He could have been younger and mistreated his body a little bit more. He'd used it as an amusement park as opposed to a temple, and he and I asked him very nice. I said, because I found myself in the basement and I only found his hijab, bit of his headdress, and one of the Luger pistols as well. That was used by him, and a small plaque of information on him, but not really much more. And I wanted to see what else they had in the museum and what else was available for sort of mental consumption, because I want to know more, and I love the way that museums deliver information, and I think they're fantastic institutions. We should have more of them, if anything, you know.
So the good thing about London is we have so many free museums that are absolutely amazing.
Yeah,
you know, like the Science Museum, and we've got a good one about that, eh?
Oh yes, we do. That was magnificent. Yeah, we found ourselves in the mathematics department.
After a heavy night of partying.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a story probably for another podcast. Maybe we'll later down the line we'll delve into that one. Anyway, I was in the Imperial War Museum. I wanted to know more, and I asked this guy, and he had one eye and was a bit disheveled. And I stopped him. He was walking past me. I said, "Excuse me, hi, excuse me." He kind of blanked me. I said, "Excuse me, sorry." And he worked there, and he was one of the kind of security / curators of the area that he was in. You know, one of those guys that kind of sits in a chair, and if you have any questions about any of the exhibits, then you direct it to them. And I asked him, do you have any more pieces or any more sections on T.E. Lawrence that I could look at within the World War I section or post? And he said no, we don't have any more on him, and we don't have his camel, and we don't have his bike. And
helpful fella.
And I said, okay, thank you very much. There's no other exhibit. He said, no. I said, okay. I have offended him or assaulted him in some way. So then I wandered off and thinking all the different ways that I wanted to kill this dude as I was walking off, or all the different big, huge speeches that went through my head of how I'd like to have a go at this man.
You, sir.
Yeah, you little piece of shit. It's like, oh my, I was so outraged at him. Like, and he'd like kind of like a wonky leg and stuff. And I was like, yeah, well, I should. Like, I'm going to go upstairs. Like, I didn't know I was like, I'm going upstairs now because you won't be able to get up here. You can't get to me and upset me up here. Yeah. And shit. And I spoke to some of the people at the front desk, and I said there was a guy downstairs, and it wasn't necessarily rude to me at all, but I don't think that he understood what I was looking for. Could you give me more information? And they talked about his rifle.
So where's his rifle currently kept?
His rifle is currently kept in a private collection, and it's actually on tour. But it is found, I think, 4 to 6 months out of the year at the Imperial War Museum. But it's on loan, I think, at they sometimes keep it in their reserve kind of collection in the back. But it's I think it's at Windsor Windsor House or something. I think was where they said it was at the moment, but I couldn't find it. Oh, yeah.
So to the audience that sort of might not know the history of his rifle, it was originally a British rifle, and the Turks killed a British soldier, and they took it off him, and they basically engraved it with some beautiful carvings, and the Turks gave it as a gift to the Arabs, kind of as a warning, and basically to sort of spite the Turks. The Arabs then gave it back to Lawrence of Arabia, and he managed to get a few little notches on his rifle before he stopped calculating it, because I think the fact that he had to kill people in his job role kind of hurt him quite a lot. Even though he was a colonel, he didn't really. It feels like he didn't really want to take on that kind of role. Every loss of life for him, he repented quite a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's a great form of analysis for his kind of his more humanitarian aspects of his role of kind of of definitely in the long term of bringing peace, but to so many of his contemporaries, he wanted to bring peace at a much sooner rate, I like to think, than a lot of other people, though, maybe were of that era that may have sort of lived in blood. Abu el-Badai, like who Badai, I think I might be saying that wrong, but you know who I mean. The gentleman that Anthony Quinn plays, by the way, in the film, his character, who had 48 great wounds, all carried in battle, and he used to cut out the beating hearts of his enemies and take a chunk out of them in himself, and was one of the most feared people. He was so feared that the Turks had to mark him whenever he was on the battlefield, because just in case you accidentally killed this man, his entire family and multiple other tribes would rise up against you and find you and burn and destroy. It's like OG got a gangster kind of thing. And anyway, but I digress. So I know I'm in this museum, and I after talking to this man and then talking to the people at the desk, and I said, and I just went on a walkabout and I walked to a few other places, and I found another person who was another curator. I just want to say for the record, most of the staff in the Imperial War Museum were wonderful, very helpful, and fantastic human beings. But I did bump into another person that was bloody useless whilst I was there as well. It was it was 2 out of 12 people. So there were 10 people that were there. They were phenomenally helpful, lovely people, and knew so much about the exhibits. I'm very keen. But there was another guy who was a bit useless, and I was this bit closed, and he said, I don't know. I was like, how can you not know?
It's your job.
It's your fucking job. You've got one thing to do in this bloody place, and it's to look after what you do. Why do they pay you? Anyway, I said thank you very much and walked on, and I walked onto the you've been in the Imperial War Museum?
No, I can't say that I have. I've passed it,
but they have 2 kind of walkways which are above all of their floating collection of kind of like balloons, chariots, and things, which are war pieces or planes, multiple planes. I walked down this gangway, and on the left-hand side there was one of the most incredible pieces of military historical artifacts that I'd ever seen, which was devoted to Lawrence, and it was a laurel wreath. And this is one of the best stories in war I've heard. Just as a story, it's intriguing, interesting, amazing. So this laurel wreath was cast out of solid bronze and was placed upon the. It was placed by the hands of Kaiser Wilhelm II upon the tomb of Salah ad-Din, another one of the great military character.
Yeah.
Oh my god, wow. And his wife as well was dope.
His wife?
Yeah, that's I don't know enough to speak with confidence about it, but I think it was one of his wife was like just incredible. I read a very brief piece on it and then unfortunately got distracted by numerous other things. And anyway, so it had been placed by Kaiser Wilhelm II on this ground in Damascus, which is where Salah ad-Din's body is. And then when the British had taken it from the German units that were there, Lawrence and Prince Faisal themselves. Prince Faisal took it and denounced its placement upon there because it had been placed by German hands. He gave a speech and said, "This is not. This will. It is improper that this should be placed within the gardens that house Salah ad-Din at Damascus." And then Lawrence removed it and took it all the way back to England with him, which is now where it sits in the Imperial War Museum.
Oh wow!
And this asshole on the bottom floor didn't even know that this was fucking one of the exhibits, which was related to Lawrence. I mean, for goodness sake,
that's a key part of like history, really.
Absolutely. And I was a bit hurt by the fact that this person wasn't aware, even though
Imperial War Museum, you need to step up your game.
Exactly. Come on, like shout out to all 10 other members of wonderful staff over there, but you two buttholes, you should be fired.
Yeah. Can I get an amen? Can I get an
amen? Anyway, but yeah, to T.
T. Lawrence.
My favorite thing I'd love a sign with what was above his front door above mine, which was Al Frontis.
Al Frontis.
It's Latin for I don't care. It was above his front door at Clouds Hill. No, I've been there as well.
Is this the one he carved himself?
Yes.
Oh wow.
Beautiful. But still there.
Life lesson for everyone: stop caring. Life will be a lot better.
Yeah. Well, give me the God, what was it? Give me the luxuries and I'll do without the essentials was another one of his, I do believe. But yeah, anyway, so T is an incredible thing that we've kind of like bonded with for a long time, and something that you've been reading his book, Life by what's his name? Is the name of the author?
I don't remember.
Michael something.
Nah, no comment.
And we'll be remembering later. We're going out late, hence why we're dressed as we are.
We're just having
beautiful garb. Look at this.
I mean, it's all about that tiger jumper. But we're going out for a few drinks, so this is just our little warm up.
Preliminary wineage and Lawrence talk, and
and a lot of it will be carried on at the bar.
Absolutely.